Hello, you gorgeous individuals, it's Kavya, and today I am so excited to be sharing with you all that I'm going to be making this December TDA December, or basically a December dedicated to The Dark Artifices by Cassandra Clare. Essentially, Emma from Emma Books has done something somewhat similar before, where years ago, in anticipation of the release of City of Heavenly Fire, she did a series called TMI May, where she dedicated her videos that May to the Mortal Instruments, and she also did one this November in anticipation of Queen of Air and Darkness, the last book of the Dark Artifices, being released. And I knew that I myself wanted to do something similar in anticipation for Queen of Air and Darkness, so she kind of inspired me to create my own version of that for videos about the Dark Artifices, kind of celebrating the release of Queen of Air and Darkness. So I'm going to be sharing at least 4 videos dedicated to the Shadowhunter Chronicles over the next 4 weeks, if not more. And I'm so excited to be doing this project because, as anyone who knows me knows, the Shadowhunter Chronicles by Cassandra Clare is my favorite series of all time. It means the world and more to me, so of course I wanted to do something special to commemorate the conclusion of her latest trilogy, and I'm so excited to be starting that today. To kick all of this off, I'm going to be doing a TMI versus TID versus TDA tag, which I actually also found on Emma's channel, so of course I'll be linking her video in the description below, and I highly recommend you watch it because, as always, she did a phenomenal job with it. Basically, the TMI versus TID versus TDA tag is a spin-off of the TMI versus TID tag, which was created a while ago, and I have done that on my channel as well, so I will link my TMI versus TID tag in the description below. But this tag basically just adds on TDA to it. So essentially there are 10 questions that kind of ask you to compare certain aspects of the 3 different series, and you choose which series you think is your favorite for the answer for that question, and at the end you rack up all the points. You kind of get to see how it plays out and how your love for the 3 series is distributed. But for the minority of you who might be watching this video and wondering what the hell TMI, TID, and TDA are, they are the 3 different series by Cassandra Clare set in the Shadowhunter universe. So TMI is the first series that ever came out, and it is called The Mortal Instruments, and it is kind of the most famous of the 3. TID is The Infernal Devices, which is the prequel trilogy to The Mortal Instruments, and TDA is The Dark Artifices, which is a sequel trilogy to The Mortal Instruments. And The Dark Artifices has its 3rd and final book, Queen of Air and Darkness, coming out on Tuesday, December 4th, so it's kind of a big thing for those of us who are fans of Cassandra Clare's work. And I don't really foresee many spoilers being shared in this video. I know there are a few questions that touch on spoilery subjects, so if you by any chance haven't read certain books in the series, I will put a picture of the book that is being spoiled somewhere on the screen, and you can just mute the video until that picture disappears. So no matter where you are in your journey in Cassandra Clare's world, you should be able to watch this video without being at risk of being spoiled. So without further ado, let's get started. Question 1. Who is the better main character? Clary, Tessa, or Emma? And my answer for this one is Emma Carstairs from The Dark Artifices. So I've kind of had a tumultuous relationship with Clary in my reading process of The Mortal Instruments, and I've never really truly liked her. I think that she is more of a stereotypical main character that we did see in YA for a long time, and she kind of was a product of the time period she was created in, and I think there is something beautiful to the fact that we've seen so much of her growth and we get to see her now as an adult in The Dark Artifices, and we will continue to see her growth in the future. And I do think that I have grown to like her more throughout my reading experience, but I think that my initial feelings of dislike for Clary still sometimes linger, so I knew for a fact that she wouldn't be the answer to this question. And as for Tessa's character, I think that Tessa is a remarkable main character. I love her journey throughout the Infernal Devices because I think it's one that's so different from the typical journey we see with YA female protagonists. But in my heart, I just knew I had to go with Emma because there's something so badass about her that I just absolutely adore with my whole entire heart. And I think that there's something to be said about the fact that Cassandra Clare has taken Emma and Julian's characters and kind of subverted typical binary gender stereotypes and exchange them between the two, and Emma is kind of referred to as a female Jace, but I think she's far better than Jace ever was. So I think that there's something to be said about that, and there's something so unique in how she's portrayed Emma's character, and I just have really loved watching her journey as well, because we did get an introduction to Emma as a 12-year-old in The Mortal Instruments, albeit she did only make a few cameos here and there, but I think that there's something so beautiful about seeing her journey as well. I just love her so much, and I have so much love for her character, and I do have love for all three of these characters, but something about Emma is so unique and so original, and that's why I have to give her the point for this one. Question number 2 is a spoilery one for the Dark Artifices, and my answer for it is also spoilery, so definitely be aware of the picture that will be shared to mute until this question is over. Question number 2, who is the better Herondale? Will, Jace, or Kit? And my answer for this one is none other than Kit Herondale from the Dark Artifices again. Like my relationship with Clary, I've also had a very tumultuous relationship with Will Herondale throughout my reading process of the Infernal Devices. Again, I just want to remind you all that I was much younger when I originally read these series, so my emotions have changed, but I think a lot of the original opinions I created have still lingered in some way or another, and that's definitely existed with Will's character. So when I first read the Infernal Devices, I absolutely hated him with my entire heart, and since then I have developed as a person and as a reader, and I can see the depth with which Will's character has been created, and I can see the amazing character development and growth he goes through, and I can definitely acknowledge that. But regardless, my initial opinions of Will still do exist within my heart, so I don't think I could fully give him this point because he will never be my favorite Herondale. And as for Jace, he's just never really been my favorite. I've always liked his character, and when I originally did the TMI versus TID tag, Jace did win that point, but again, he's not one character that would win against everything for me. I like his character, but he's not my absolute favorite from the Mortal Instruments. So of course Kit is the winner because I genuinely adore Kit's character with my whole entire heart, and I'm so excited we got introduced to him and we got introduced to a new Herondale in a very unusual fashion, because Kit didn't grow up knowing he was a Herondale. He discovered that later on in his life, so I think that there's something so much more unique to his journey, and I just think that's so incredible. And again, he's a character that we're meeting from a younger age and that we're going to see grow into an adult when we get to read the Wicked Powers. I think that there's something to be said about the fact that we're going to literally watch his growth and development. That's something I'm so excited for, and just seeing his character grow in Lady Midnight and Lord of Shadows has been so amazing. This series has such an incredible cast of characters that I love every single one of them. This is the hardest series of Cassandra Clare's for me to pick a favorite character in, because I genuinely love each of the main and supporting cast characters with all of my heart for a different reason, because I think they are all so unique and so well developed, and she manages to give them all their own story arc and their own time to shine in the series, and we definitely see that with Kit, so he's definitely the winner for this one in my heart. Question 3. Best love triangle. Clary, Jace, and Simon, Tessa, Jem, and Will, or Emma, Julian, and Mark. Now, this one is a no-brainer, and it definitely goes to Heron Greystairs from the Infernal Devices. Heron Greystairs is legitimately the best love triangle of all time, and no matter how many books I continue to read, I don't think any love triangle can ever possibly beat them, because they are so well created. That love triangle is one of the best aspects of the series, although every aspect of that series is the best aspect of that series. The unique thing about this love triangle is that it really isn't a love triangle. It's just a love shared between these three characters, and there's no hatred, there's no jealousy involved in it. It truly is purely love created between these three characters, and any emotions of hurt or anger that arise in the hopes of protecting the other members and trying to cater to all of their needs. And there's something so beautiful about that, because Tessa herself, she gets to have two great loves in her life. She gets both Will and Jem, and there's something so beautiful about that, and they both love her with their entire hearts. But then there's the Parabatai bond between Jem and Will, and the love they share for each other and the sacrifices they're willing to make for each other. Just that entire relationship between the three is so centered on a love for the three of them and a hope to give all three of them what they deserve, and there's just something so beautiful and fantastic about that. I feel like no other love triangle could ever even remotely do justice to what this relationship between these three incredible characters is. Question number 4, again, is a spoilery question, but my answer for it isn't spoilery, so just mute the picture until the question ends and then you can listen to the answer. Who is the best villain? Sebastian Morgenstern, Axel Mortman, or Annabelle Blackthorne? And my answer for this question, just like last year, is Sebastian Morgenstern from the Mortal Instruments. Sebastian, again, is one of my absolute favorite villains of all time, and I think that it is definitely going to be a challenge to ever beat his character, because there is something about the pure evil within him that is just fascinating to me. And I think that neither of the other antagonists have the ability to instill the same fear that Sebastian does, because even just hearing his name, I just think of him as a villain. I can just picture him as a villain with a sword, like standing over a dead body or something. His character has this ability to instill this fear, and I don't think the other antagonists have that same power. Of course, he is a character that is evil. There is no doubting that. He is purely evil, and he is not just flawed, he's just bad, and there's no denying that. But I think that's what makes him so appealing as a villain. There's something to be said to that, to his entire creation as an evil character. There's just something to be said to that, because I just think that he is a villain that is so well created. I think that he's definitely the shining point of the last 3 books of the Mortal Instruments, because Sebastian as a villain is really what propels those 3 books, so of course he had to get this point. Question number 5. Which series threat is the best? The Dark Army, the Clockwork Army, or the Parabatai Curse? For this one, I have to go with the Parabatai Curse from the Dark Artifices. The Dark Artifices is picking up some points really quick because it is such an incredible series. The Parabatai Curse is definitely what I had to choose as my answer for this one. I think that the Dark Army and the Clockwork Army do have their own power and how evil they are, but there's something about the power and the mystery associated with the Parabatai Curse that led me to give it the point. Cassandra Clare herself has said that everything we know about the Shadow World is going to change when we read Queen of Air and Darkness, and I think that there's something to the fact that this curse has the ability to change our entire knowledge of this world that has existed for so long. There's something to be said about that. So I think that the power that this curse has over these people and the mystery associated with it, because we really don't know the why to this curse. We have learned more information through reading Lord of Shadows about the existence of this curse and what it means, but we really don't understand the why. It's just been said from the beginning of time, 2 Parabatai cannot fall in love, and we really don't understand the power that has and the fact that it affects these 2 main characters of this series so much, and we're going to have to see it impact their lives. I just think that there's something so dark about that, because this love they share is being twisted into something dark, and there's an evil associated with it. So I'm just so excited to explore that. So definitely the Parabatai Curse. Question number 6. Better first book, Lady Midnight, Clockwork Angel, or City of Bones? And for this one, I'm going to be going with Lady Midnight. I think that City of Bones will always have a place in my heart for the emotional connection I have to it. It's definitely Cassandra Clare's worst book. I mean, that shouldn't be a surprise. It's the first book she ever wrote, so of course she has grown as a writer since that time. But because of the fact that it is the book that got me into the Shadow World, it was my introduction to everything that came with the power of the Shadowhunter Chronicles in my life. It will always have that place in my heart. It will always have that emotional attachment in my heart. But Lady Midnight is objectively the best first book. Of course, Clockwork Angel is phenomenal and objectively is better than City of Bones, and it definitely has a place in my heart, being the introduction to my favorite trilogy, as The Infernal Devices is my favorite trilogy. But Lady Midnight is just so good, and I truly don't know how to explain it any better than that. I think that with City of Bones and Clockwork Angel, we were in this place where the main character and the reader were coming into the Shadow World without the knowledge of the Shadow World. We had to go through the introduction, we had to go through the learning process. But with Lady Midnight, we had a main character who grew up a Shadowhunter, so she already had that experience, and as the reader, having read Cassandra Clare's other series, of course I already had that experience. So I think the fact that the foundation of the Shadow World already existed allowed for a more in-depth analysis of the world, because we are still learning new things about the world in this series, and I think that getting to go more in depth with it is just incredible, because the things we already know, we know them and we treat them as facts, but in this series we are seeing that what we think is true is not necessarily always true. And like I said, another huge amazing part of this series is the phenomenal characters, and Cassie introduced a brilliant cast of characters in Lady Midnight that she really gave the time to develop. Even within that first book itself, I really felt like I got a good understanding of all of the main and supporting cast with Lady Midnight itself, and then we delved more into that in Lord of Shadows, and we will delve even more into it in Queen of Air and Darkness. I think that just the ability to explore more of the Shadow World and the incredible cast of characters we're doing it with just means that Lady Midnight has to get that point, and objectively it is a better book, because Cassandra Clare is truly is improving with every single book she gives us. Question 7. Favorite female supporting character? Isabel Lightwood, Cecily Herondale, or Christina Rosales? And for this one, I'm going to be going with Isabel Lightwood from The Mortal Instruments. Now, this is definitely a tough question because all three of these women are just incredible, and I've really grown to love Christina's character as I'm reading The Dark Artifices, but Isabel is tied for my favorite literary character of all time, along with the Gem Carstairs and possibly Anna Lightwood as I learn more about her character as well. So of course this had to go to Isabel because despite the fact that I admire and adore all three of these women for the power, the individuality, and the amazingness they have within them, Isabel's character has this hold over me that very few other fictional characters do. I mean, we can just talk about the fact that Isabel Lightwood is the fictional character that I relate the most to as a reader. She was the first character I ever read and I was like, wow, I see myself in her. I see my personality reflected in her. I see my emotions reflected in her, and just that in itself has given me a personal connection with her that I don't have with these other two women, despite the fact that I love them so much. And just that in itself, I think, means that she does definitely have to win this because I just love her so much. All three of these women are badass in their own ways, and they each have their own path and their own way of showing female power, and I think that that's something so incredible Cassie does in her work. But Isabel's path is the most similar to my path, and that emotional connection gives her the point. Question number 8. Which is the better setting, the New York Institute, the London Institute, or the Los Angeles Institute? So for this question, I'm going to be going with the London Institute. So the thing about this question is I think we also have to take into account the time periods that each of these books are set in, because they're each in different time periods, the Infernal Devices being the one in the most different time period. The Mortal Instruments and the Dark Artifices take place in more contemporary times, and I think that if you compare what the New York Institute and the Los Angeles Institute are now to what the London Institute was then, it's not exactly even because they also are in very different times. And I'm not saying that I would like to live in the Victorian era, because whereas I do think that there are a lot of cool aspects of it, there are also a lot of reasons that I wouldn't want to live there. But the emotional attachment I have to the Infernal Devices has just made me see the London Institute with these unbearably loving eyes, if that makes sense. I have been to both New York and Los Angeles. I haven't been to London, so I can't really compare the actual places to each other than New York and Los Angeles, and I actually really love both of those places so much, and I do love those locations because I do have emotional attachments with each of those locations in my real life, not just in terms of fictionally. But the thing is, my emotional attachment that lies with London exists because of the Infernal Devices, and that power, I think, just means that this has to get the point, because the entire atmosphere of the Infernal Devices is one of my favorite aspects of it, and I think that a lot of that atmosphere is also due to the time period it's set in, because again, it's set in the Victorian era, which is a very different time period than either of these other series. But if you take into account setting, I think of setting as the time period and the place, so because of both of those combined together, that leads me to consider the emotional attachment I have with the series, and because of that, I definitely have to give it the point. So unfortunately, as this video is being filmed before Queen of and Darkness is even released, I of course haven't read it yet, and these last two questions do talk about the last book of the series, so I cannot be answering them with the Dark Artifices, so these questions will really only exist between the Mortal Instruments and the Infernal Devices. Question number 9. Better last book, City of Heavenly Fire, Clockwork Princess, or Queen of Air and Darkness? So for this one, of course, I'm going to be going with Clockwork Princess. So if you're new here, Clockwork Princess is my single favorite book of all time. It has been my favorite since I first read it when I was 12, and I'm now 17, so it's been my favorite book for 5 years now. So of course I have to give the point to the Infernal Devices. I love City of Heavenly Fire. I think that it is a brilliant book, but it's not even my favorite of the Mortal Instruments because that is City of Glass, so of course it's not going to get the point for this one. And Queen of Air and Darkness hasn't been released yet, though I do want to admit that I'm not going to deny that there's a possibility that Queen of Air and Darkness could become my favorite book, because Cassandra Clare is known for having this ability to write the third book of a trilogy so well. Her best books are City of Glass, the third book of the Mortal Instruments, City of Heavenly Fire, the sixth book of the Mortal Instruments, Clockwork Princess, the third book of the Infernal Devices. She's known for her ability to write epic conclusions and to write the ending of trilogies so well. And after reading Lady Midnight and Lord of Shadows, I can say that those are objectively her best books. So because of that, I'm not going to put it past Cassandra Clare to have the ability to make Queen of Air and Darkness my new favorite book, but at this moment when I'm filming it, Clockwork Princess is my favorite book, and for a long time I never thought anything could surpass it. But yeah, the Infernal Devices is my favorite trilogy, and because of Cassandra Clare's ability to write these epic conclusions, Clockwork Princess was really the best book of that trilogy, so it by default became my favorite book of all time, so the point is going to that one. And question number 10. Best final epilogue, City of Heavenly Fire, Clockwork Princess, or Queen of Air and Darkness? So for this one, I'm going to be going with the epilogue in Clockwork Princess again. Queen of Air and Darkness is not out yet, so I have no idea what the epilogue is even going to be like in that one, so it's automatically discounted. Of course, I love the epilogues in both City of Heavenly Fire and the Infernal Devices, but that being said, the epilogue in Clockwork Princess is one that I can remember right now. I can remember everything about it right now. I don't have that same detailed memory of the epilogue in City of Heavenly Fire, and I think that the epilogue to Clockwork Princess was just so perfect. I don't really like purely happy endings, and I don't think City of Heavenly Fire has a purely happy ending, and I don't think the epilogue is purely happy either. But Clockwork Princess has this bittersweet way of ending that I think is perfect, because I think that in these kind of fantasy series that deal with these big threats, to wrap it all up with a pretty little bow is just not realistic, and I admire Cassandra Clare's willingness to not do that, to make it more bittersweet, and I think that she really did that in Clockwork Princess, and I really love that because of how I love the ending of books, and that's really reflected in the epilogue of Clockwork Princess, so of course it had to get the point. So the final tally came down to 2 points for the Mortal Instruments, 4 points for the Infernal Devices, and 4 points for the Dark Artifices. That's really not truly shocking to me by any means. Of course I love the Mortal Instruments and it will always have a place in my heart, but both objectively and subjectively, in my personal opinion, it's not Cassandra Clare's best work, and again, that's not a bad thing because authors grow, and that doesn't deny the fact that it is a good series and the fact that it is part of my favorite world. But regardless, she has grown as a writer since then, and I think that these other two series are objectively better and subjectively just are more interesting to me as a reader. And I'm not so surprised that they tied, because the Infernal Devices is emotionally and subjectively my favorite series, but the Dark Artifices is objectively Cassandra Clare's better work, so I think taking into account both of those differences, the fact that subjectively one is my favorite but objectively one is better, I think that it makes sense that it kind of evened out and they equaled out. So what is my favorite series? At this point, I would still say the Infernal Devices because it has that place in my heart, but who knows what Cassie is going to do in Queen of Air and Darkness and how that is going to affect my opinions of that series overall. But yeah, that's it for this video. I'm so excited to continue making videos related to the Dark Artifices and to the Shadowhunter Chronicles overall, because it just means so much to me, and I'm excited to put out more content related to it because I've always wanted to make more Shadowhunter-y content, and this gives me the perfect excuse to do so. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe because that stuff makes me happy, and then we can also go on the journey of Queen of Air and Darkness together. And go ahead and comment down below, and if you are a fellow fan of Cassandra Clare's work, let me know which series is your favorite and how much you are anticipating the release of Queen of Air and Darkness. As usual, all of my social media and my Goodreads will be in the description below if you'd like to follow me anywhere else. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you're having a lovely day night wherever you are. Please remember that you are beautiful and you deserve the world, and I will see you soon for a brand new video. Bye!